Hello everybody, I'm Jonathan from Gamereactor and we're here at the preview event for the Dark Souls 3 game. We were lucky enough to get an interview with the producer Miyazaki about the game. Unfortunately, we weren't able to film the interview. Instead, you're gonna hear the sound with some nice gameplay footage, and the guy you're gonna hear talk is the translator and international producer Yoshimura. Enjoy. So we reached the third chapter, and why was the decision to make a third one? Was there any new approach, a different mindset with this third game in the series?
So first of all, Miyazaki-san has no idea why Dark Souls 3 project has been launched at the very beginning. That reason being that he has not involved in the development when the team was working on the prototype of the Dark Souls 3. During that time, Miyazaki-san was concentrating himself on the Bloodborne production. But at least Miyazaki-san can talk about why, if that's the case, why he decided to join the development team of the Dark Souls 3. While he was working on the Bloodborne, he had a chance to review the Dark Souls franchise as a whole from the different point of view, and he find out the the good part, bad part about the classic fantasy, and he thought he can bring some new things to the Souls series, and he is confident about doing so. So that is why he decided to join the Dark Souls 3 project team.
So you made Bloodborne before this. Was there anything in that experience? You learned something in that experience that you can bring to this game?
One is the some technical elements. Definitely, the Bloodborne was the first the current generation console title that the From Software has worked on. So some of the findings from the technical point of view are definitely reflected in the Dark Souls 3 production. And also some gameplay elements of the Bloodborne has been reflected in the Dark Souls 3 as well. For example, like having limits to the number of the items that the player can bring to the battlefield. That's one. Two is the ability, the player's ability, influencing the items effects too, and last but not least the character control, specifically speaking the character speed during the battle. Those are some of the things that the Bloodborne has influenced the Dark Souls 3 production, and the last but not least, this is something he already communicated in the previous questions, but actually working on the Bloodborne gives him an opportunity to review the Souls series once again. So he might not find out the good part of the Souls series, as well as the good part of the classic fantasy. And not only that, but also Bloodborne is basically is actually presenting the dark side of the world creation of the Miyazaki-san, and those are some of the things that's been reflected in the Dark Souls 3 game content.
So in the presentation you talked about new skills to the fighting system. Can you just tell us a bit about that, and is there any sort of other large changes or different approach to the fighting system this time around?
So what makes Dark Souls unique is that one of the reasons behind it is that the player are basically able to keep using the same weapon from the beginning till the very end. So what he tried to do in Dark Souls 3 is to add more deep tactics to each weapon, and also to let the player experience the distinctive role play for each weapon. So adding skill elements to each weapon definitely helps improve these two characteristics. So having skills allow player to use each weapon, for example longsword, more effectively in terms of the role play. Yes.
In terms of the story, can you just shortly tell us what is the premise? Where does it take us this time around?
Well, first of all, he do not want to spoil the the storylines, so he cannot go into details about it. But what he wants to describe in this game is, the sadness or loneliness. Those things even exist in the some of the big characters. Like not I'm not talking about the physically big, but for example like lords or dragons, but even those characters have some sadness or loneliness. That's what he trying to describe. So basically, it's about the apocalypse, the storyline. But there's some loneliness or sadness in that apocalyptic worldview. But there's hope waiting ahead, and it's hard to explain. Hard player probably difficult to understand what is it all about. But that is something Miyazaki-san has prepared in the game.
So when I first played a Dark Souls game, what blew me away was the art design and the atmosphere. So where do you draw the inspiration, and how do you come up with these evil creatures?
So two things. One is the his source is basically, one is the some literature like novels, basically text based. It's really rare that when working on the character design, he usually used the some text-based information as a reference. It's really rare that he used some visual reference when working on the when selecting those visual designers for the character creation. That's one. And two is that, as you may know, he do not believe in any of the religions. However, he's interested in those some ceremonies of the religions out there, and he's showing some respect to all those things, and he is really interested in. So those are also the another like a sources of the inspiration for working on some of the the designs available in the game.
And the games are really hard. Why do you feel they need to be so difficult? And not that it's a bad thing, but how do you strike the balance? Can it get too difficult?
So two things. One is whether the player able to overcome the difficulty, and two is that, well, let's start from first one. So in order to make sure that the player able to overcome that difficulty, team actually test each scene, and standard they use is actually whether Miyazaki-san is able to clear that complete overcome that difficulty, because as you might know, but he's not that good gamer. So second thing is that to make sure that it's reasonable. For example, like he makes sure that the player able to find out that the reason why he died in the game is because it's his fault, and he learns learn something from that lesson, and they reflect that to when he challenged the same thing again.
The dark atmosphere and art design and the world and the difficulty together creates a really special game, but a very dark, and both in gameplay and visually, a dark and kind of hopeless game. Why do you think that players are so attracted to this and want to get lost in this world?
So two things. One is the Lizard, and two is process. So first is about the Lizard, but again, it's about the Dark Souls is about the game that player basically overcome the difficulty and experience a sense of accomplishment, and that makes player really happy, right? And that's a Lizard. And the process, well, even when player try to overcome the difficulties, player actually struggling for it, but at the same time they are probably enjoying struggling to overcome each difficulties. So those are the two things that why those fans out there keep playing Dark Souls series.
So I just have one last question. In the online multiplayer game, there's some new features, an extra number of players, right up to 6 players. Can you tell us just shortly about what we can expect from the multiplayer?
First of all, the basic concept of the online multiplayer is 4. That's not been changed from the previous installment. So basically, there's a host players, 2 white phantoms and the 1 red phantoms. It's still the same, but there's an option for each player to break that rule using the new item called the dried fingers. So 6 players multiplayer functionality is for those people consciously want to break the current rules. So having that being said, if people want to have 1 more white phantoms and also 1 more red phantoms, that's their choice. But there will be no situation where player have to fight against the 2 red phantoms. We're not gonna do that. I mean, however, users have option to do so if they wish to do so. So again, user wish to do so, host players versus 2 red phantoms could be produced in the game. Yes.
Thank you very much for talking with us. Yeah, thank you.